refereeing not what the lawyers do so much, but what the victim's family is doing. And you don't want a record where some appellate court is going to say, this just doesn't seem fair to the defendant, and we're going to do it all over again. So in another 6 years, we're doing it again, okay? And it's not because the lawyers are doing anything improper or the witnesses, but it may appear to an appellate court that the victim's family is. So I have this request, okay? Don't be standing up, okay? Sit down like everybody else, okay? And then,
Your Honor, may I speak?
okay. And what's your name? Okay. All right. And then, all right. And then every day you've was shown up. I understand the family's been here every day. I did notice that some days you're all dressed up and some days you aren't. And then today you're in full military gear, right? So, right. I understand that, right? But that's not what the purpose of this is today, okay? And we don't want a situation where it appears as if you're trying to make a statement.
I'm not making a statement. I'm wearing this because I wore this to my father's funeral. He did this. So my point
I understand.
Just tell me.
All right. Well, I would like this. Okay. Here's your three choices. Okay. Change your clothes and come back, or I don't have a problem if you sit in the third row there behind those big guys. Okay. And so you're less conspicuous. Okay. Or
I've had 7 surgeries and I have to move around. That's why I stand up.
okay. Yeah.
He has been standing.
Yeah. He has been standing a lot. I've been noticing that. So.
This is discrimination. This is not the freedom that we fought for.
Well, it's not. We don't want. I'm sure you don't want to risk having this case reversed, right? You don't want to do that.
Because of the clothes that people are wearing.
Well, yeah. I mean, this is not unusual, okay? I mean, we've had cases where people have come in with T-shirts that have the victim's photos on them or faces on them. Okay, you can't do that. Okay, we've had police officers who have been the victims on death penalty cases, and then a whole bunch of police officers came in uniform. You can't do that either. Okay, so I'm just trying to protect this case, which is in your best interest. Okay.
Welcome back, everybody. As many of you guys know, I'm a law enforcement trainer instructor. I train and instruct military law enforcement all over the country on various law enforcement disciplines to include constitutional law, case law, patrol tactics, use of force, advanced investigations, etc. And so we're going to do a response video. I normally wouldn't do response video to this type of video, but I've been asked by a couple people if I would just kind of give my thoughts and takes on it. So I'm going to kind of split this up in a couple different ways. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to talk about the case law precedents of this and just stick with brass tacks. Nothing but the facts, and then I'll give you my opinion, because really one is there's a case law perspective on this, and then there's just the vet bro space perspective, and so they're going to be very different. And so I'm going to give you again just the case law perspective, and if you guys want to stay around for my opinion when it comes to veterans wearing their uniforms, or as you can see, I have lapel pins on my jacket. I'll give you my opinion, and we'll just kind of go from there. So, for starters, I think it's important that we actually understand what's actually going on here, because if you look at some of the content, the comments on the videos, it's very clear that reading is hard for some vet bros. So we'll just kind of give you the full perspective here. So you have, as you saw that there was an Army veteran in his dress uniform, and he is being told by the judge, hey, so when they come out to give their sentencing, when the jury comes out and gives the sentencing, you have to either be not in a uniform, or you're going to have to be kind of out of eyes view, whether that's on the third row behind the big deputies, or you're going to have to change. And so it's important because this is the Shelby Neely case out of Florida. Basically, in 2018, Shelby killed his wife, and then when he tried to cover it up, and when the parents grew suspicious, he went to their home, killed the parents, killed the brother, and also killed the family dog. So yeah, he's a real piece of work. And so with that, he got a reduced sentence. He got the murder for the wife dropped to manslaughter, and then for the 3 other victims, again, the parents and the brother, they were moving for sentencing for the death penalty. And so that's kind of where this all is going to be taking place. So I think that back end is actually kind of important because this veteran just lost his family. Shelby Neely murdered them. So it's completely fair that, he's probably not happy. And we'll kind of talk more about my thoughts and opinions on that. But a reasonable person would understand his frustrations with the situation. So just from a brass tack standpoint, let's talk about the veteran's right to be there. Again, Payne v. Tennessee, as you can see on your screen, the United States Supreme Court has made it evidently clear that constitutionally, the constitutionality of victims and impact statements in a capital sentencing hearing, which this totally is, and the Eighth Amendment does not prohibit juries from considering evidence from a victim's personal characteristics and an emotional impact statement. So the ability for this veteran to present characteristics and bring personal characteristics and understanding and the impact of the families that this trauma has had on the family can absolutely be used for evidentiary purposes pursuant to in accordance with Payne v. Tennessee, United States Supreme Court case precedents. So that's important. And so the veteran has absolute right to be there at the venue, 110%. Next, you have Cohen v. California in 1971. Again, states must have a better reason for concern for general disturbing the peace when they ban displaying of expletive in a public space. So again, he absolutely has the right to say things that would be disturbing for some. Wearing a uniform is disturbing for some. And we've seen that. And again, our flag burning case in Texas v. Johnson, some people see anything that has to do with the United States, anything that has to do with our armed services as disturbing, and they don't want to see it. So it's absolutely valid that somebody would see a military uniform, a dress uniform, and be disturbed by it. Their being disturbed by it does not change the legality. The Supreme Court case precedent says that it's free speech and he's allowed to do it. So again, I think that's important. And then lastly, we also have to realize again in Gannett versus DePasquet, 1979, that the United States Supreme Court also has to balance the rights of the defendant as well. As you can see, the defendant absolutely by constitutional standing has a right to a fair trial, speedy and fair trial. And so if the defendant's not going to get a fair trial because of the argument made by the military uniform, the judge is absolutely in his right to ask the gentleman to take it off, or in this case to take it off or be on the third row or be out of eyesight of the jury when they give their sentencing. So both can be true at the same time, and I think that's a very important that we understand that balance and also understand what's at stake here. I totally understand the judge's perspective on this. For the judge, if he does not want this case thrown out, this case has years of work on it. And so I imagine the judge is probably under the, based upon his training experience, probably believes there's a very high likelihood that the jury is going to come out and find, for sentencing, recommend the death penalty. So if he has a good idea that they're going to recommend the death penalty, what he doesn't want is for the jury to be then a Hail Mary to be thrown by the defendant, right? He doesn't want the jury to be undermined and somebody were to say, well, the only reason why the jury made that decision is because this gentleman in his dress uniform. So he's basically wanting to take all the arguments out of the equation for anybody that would try to do this Hail Mary, attempt of we're going to get a mistrial or we're going to get this somehow challenged because we're going to fixate on this military dress uniform. So again, both can be true. Both are true in this case. Both the victims have rights. Both the defendants have rights. So it's one of those things where, from the perspective, both are making good points. But again, ultimately, there's no question about it that the judge absolutely has a right to ensure that constitutional rights are protected and ensure that a fair trial is had. So there you go. That's my legal case law perspective of this. So if that's all you came here for, hope you guys have a good one. Long live the Republic. If you guys want to know my opinions on veterans wearing their uniforms and wearing, lapel medals like I have on my chest and talking about the vet space, let's get into it. So let's talk about the veteran community. Let's talk about the vet bro space. And let's talk about my overall opinions as it relates to military uniforms and the wear of lapel devices, etc. So before I start, I think it's very important that I do share my biases. I think that matters because I want to be transparent, right? I don't want you to think that I'm looking at this from a bipartisan view. I'm absolutely looking at this from a partisan view of myself, right? So there are going to be biases. So I think it's important that I share those. My first bias being that, I joined the military. Personally, I joined the military and I took an oath of affirmation to the Constitution. I did that both as a military service member and as a police officer. So I do believe in the Constitution, and I think that matters. And as somebody who has spent extensive time teaching constitutional law, getting advanced degrees, and then in my everyday life continuously learning about the Constitution and about how our founding documents are translated, in this case, and in most cases, and in all cases where it actually matters, for being honest, in all cases it actually matters, looking at it through the lens of the Supreme Court, because the Supreme Court, as we know, has judicial review authority, meaning they have the authority to translate what is constitutional, what is not constitutional, and that's pursuant to in accordance with Mayberry versus Madison. And I say that because the Constitution is very clear. We see it in Cohen v. California. We see it in Texas v. Johnson, that as Americans, we have the right to express ourselves. We have the right of freedom of speech. And even if somebody finds that speech to be distasteful or disorderly or offensive or disrespectful, it's of no consequence. Meaning, I don't have to care if you think that me wearing a uniform or a lapel pin is disrespectful, because the Supreme Court says I can. Right? And that's codified in our Supreme Court case precedents. So as somebody, and again, I'm just talking for myself, as somebody who has dedicated their entire life to upholding the Constitution and to defending the Constitution, to me, that's all that matters. So again, I got to be real honest with my biases. And I don't have a problem with anybody else's opinion, but as we'll see, the opinion comes with a conviction. And so understanding the pretext of that conviction also matters, again, in my humble opinion. So let's look at some of the comments. And also, let me also caveat that with, I've thought about doing veteran military content. I thought about it for like a whole 30 seconds. And then I realized that a lot of the veteran community is very toxic. The vet bro space is extremely toxic community. And that pretty much, and then unfortunately, it's really easy to fall into the affirmation of that when you just look at military content creators and you look at the comment section. It just makes it even more evidently clear that it's nothing that I want to engage in. And I say that, and it's disheartening because, I'm a part of a lot of veteran organizations. I'm a lifetime member of the VFW. It's the social media aspect of veteran content is just filled with a lot of garbage. I'm just gonna be 100% honest with you. And so again, that's my bias. So let's look at our first comment here that we're gonna look at. Combat Monkey 11 Bravo. I'm not gonna insult your intelligence by reading everything to you, but a couple things that he makes very clear is that this gentleman that's wearing the uniform is 100% out of regulation. Cool, out of Army policy, and that retirees specifically are subject to the UCMJ. Army retirees are authorized to wear the uniform for certain events. He also states that he does not believe the veteran left the funeral and has serious doubts about that, and he believes he should have changed. Now, again, I don't really care about his opinion. I think that, and I have nothing against his opinion, right? I may disagree with him on some fundamental stuff, but he has every right to express his freedom of speech. 100%, that's totally fine. With me, though, again, the context of his comment and the convictions of that comment are what really matters most to me. And I think that's probably also just because I'm a criminal investigator. So professionally, maybe I'm just looking for those cues for nexuses into other things from a professional standpoint. But ultimately, he has every right to have that opinion. Nothing against that. So let's look at some of the regulations that people keep throwing out in the comment section. If you look at Army Regulation 670-1, wear and appearance of Army uniforms and insignia, this is a whole publication dedicated to what military service members can and can't wear. And if you look at this is the front page of it, the applicability page, right? It also states that it's for Army civilians and veterans. So technically, even veterans would fall, according to Big Army, veterans fall under Army policy. And again, that's Army Regulation 670-1. So if we go into it here, let's look at another screen grab. Let's look at 23-3, retired personnel. Again, I'm not going to insult your intelligence, but if we look at this, we can clearly see and ascertain that the wear of the dress uniform while at court would not fall within Army policy, even if you were a veteran. So that's for retired personnel. And then let's click over to 23-4, former military of the Army. Again, veterans. Again, this would not, according to this policy, they are not allowed to wear it. He would not be allowed to wear it pursuant to policy. So again, why does that matter? Well, it matters because on one hand, you have Army policy that states you can't do this. It's a policy. It's not a law. It's not a statute. It's not constitutionally binding. It's a policy that says veterans can't do this. Okay. So the question for me, and the question that I know a lot of veterans ask, so what? So what? So what? And that's really the gist of it. So what happened? So what teeth are there, right? So, and I've asked friends of mine that are very hardcore military regulations people. They were the people that were measuring your ribbon stack from your breast pocket to all of that. How far your boots can be bloused. Like, these are those guys. You ask 4 of them, they'll give you 4 different answers. So I've, and this video has been out for over a week. I've been looking through all the precedents. I've been looking through as many court-martial findings as I can. I have not found one court-martial that even or NJP that even touches on a military veteran wearing a uniform outside a venue. And we've had many of them, whether it's veterans going to ICE protests, veterans doing X, Y, and Z. I haven't seen one. And then there's a lot of content creators that are actively serving or veterans that wear their uniform. And Army regulation clearly states, too, if you look at it, you cannot wear the uniform in order to promote a personal business. Well, your content creation is a personal business. I haven't seen one of those content creators that are veterans been court-martialed or UCMJ'd. Now, we've seen active duty members get in trouble, but even then, there's still a lot of active duty members that are wearing their uniform on TikTok, Instagram, social media. So again, we're talking about, in this video, we're talking about a retired Army soldier, NCO, who is getting just destroyed in the comment section for wearing his dress uniform because it's against policy. So again, the question is, well, so what? Right? He has a constitutional right to do it. He fought for that constitutional right. All of us as veterans fought for that constitutional right. So what's going to happen? And so this is the funny aspect of it for me, right? So what? So what are you going to do about it, right? Well, is the idea that we're going to, hey, soldier, knife hand, soldier, you're wearing a uniform outside of the AR 670-1, 23-3, 23-4, soldier. What are you doing? We're going to activate you back to active duty so we can conduct a court-martial. And you better be wearing that dress uniform, and it better be inspection ready, soldier. What? Like, you guys realize how ridiculous you sound. Like, and that's the thing. I don't think they realize how ridiculous they sound. There are veterans that are upset about this, and they sound so ridiculous. So ridiculous. So next, let's look at, I responded to this individual because, I think it's important, and I kind of wanted to know more. Because again, like I said, to me, I have no problem at all with any of their opinions, right? I just want to understand the conviction behind it. So then I responded back, and he told me, I was like, is this really like that big of a deal, right? And he kind of responded here, the right thing in the military is always the regs or policies in place. Even if you don't agree with some, I wasn't a fan of the forced COVID-19 vax, but there are many compelled vaccinations in the military. Anthrax, yellow fever, smallpox. Refusing making you non-deployable, you'll probably end up getting kicked out on a general chapter. And then it says, based on his charges, I don't think he's promoting the values many of us served under. So again, here's 2 points. Number one, it's clear that Combat Monkey 11 Bravo thinks that this military retired veteran, he thinks this retired veteran is, in fact, Neely, the guy that murdered his wife and wife's family and brother and the family dog. He thinks this is that guy. So couple things here. Number one, Combat Monkey 11 Bravo is doesn't even know what's actually going on with the court case, right? Because we know the veteran is not, in fact, the suspect. The veteran is a victim who, according to Supreme Court case precedents of Payne v. Texas, has every right to provide an impact statement and provide evidentiary impact statements of character to the jury. So he has every right to be there. And so what values is he not promoting? This is a guy whose family was murdered, and he's wearing his dress uniform. And I'll kind of get into that for why I think he's doing it here in a second. But how is he not promoting values? What bad values is he promoting there, Combat Monkey 11 Bravo? And it's clear that, and that's the thing, in these vet bro spaces, like it's a very charged emotional area. Logic is not their strong suit. Apparently, neither is reading. And so it's just, it's mind numbing. It's just wild to me that he's really bearing down. But you do see the conviction, right? So when we look at the conviction here, in his mind, when it comes to the military, it's all about rules and regulations. It's all about following orders. That's the only thing that matters. Nothing else matters. You follow the orders of those appointed over you. Okay. And let me just say, I don't have any problem with that. I believe that when you have good leadership, good, honorable, ethical, moral leadership that is making decisions for military service members, especially in the field, right, or in whatever job they're doing, when you are asking your soldiers, hey, I want you to take this enemy position that's actively firing on you, yeah, that I totally get that. I totally get the blind allegiance. Our soldiers and our service members that fought on D-Day, I absolutely get the blind allegiance. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm not saying that's a bad thing at all. But can blind allegiance lead to some horrible repercussions? I think we've seen it. I think the Nuremberg trials made a pretty good precedence of that. So I think that it's okay to question things that need to be questioned. And I also think that it's okay to, have an absolute okay, we're doing this. I think that's okay too. I think in both areas we can show where it's a good thing. But at some point you have to realize that maybe my assumptions here and maybe my convictions aren't right at all times. And I'm certainly somebody who's willing to acknowledge that, right? Because in this gentleman's mindset, or woman, I don't know if this is a man or woman, but in Combat Monkey 11 Bravo's mindset, the blind adherence to policy and standards is something you must do at all times. I can't sit here in good faith and tell you that that's a good thing, because I can't say that I necessarily agree with every policy, which is why I'm really glad that we do have a Constitution, right? And so it's one of those things where I understand where he's coming from. I just respectfully disagree. And I also will respectfully say I'm very glad the whole world doesn't think like him, right? I'm glad, and I know this is controversial in veteran spaces, and it shouldn't be, but to my civilian counterparts, I'm just being honest. I'm really happy we have Martin Luther King Jr.'s out there, right? As a person of color, I can tell you I'm very happy Martin Luther King Jr. Engaged in civil disobedience. I'm very happy about that, because without his shoulders, we wouldn't be where we're at today. Lovings v. Virginia case, I'm very happy that the Lovings family, right? I'm very happy that that white Caucasian man married that Native American woman. I'm glad that Native American woman decided to marry that Caucasian white man. And I'm also very happy that they took their oath of marriage so seriously that they were willing to go to jail, and they did. They took the ride. I'm very happy they were willing to go to jail, and they were willing to fight in the adjudication process all the way to the Supreme Court, to which the Supreme Court had to look at the case and say, yes, people that are two different races can be married in this country. I'm very happy that those people exist. And that's controversial to say in veteran spaces, because there's this mentality of blind allegiance. So I'm very happy, and maybe I shouldn't say that, but it's the truth. I'm just being honest with you. I'm very happy that those people existed. And so while I understand that policies have a place, I understand that regulations have a place, this idea that we're going to subjugate somebody, especially a veteran who no longer serves, we're going to subjugate them to this AR 670-1 to the point that we're going to banter them online and hope that they get court-martialed, is just wild. Again, it's wild because based upon what I'm seeing here with Combat Monkey 11 Bravo, if he did see a tragedies, right? If he was living in, early 1900s and Jim Crow area, he would tell people of color, well, this is just the way the rules are, so you have to listen to it. Well, I want to marry somebody who's an opposite race. Well, you can't do that because the law says no, so you just got to listen to what the law says, boy. Girl, you got to listen to what the law says because the law is there. Again, am I saying that's a bad mentality to have? I'm not. Well, I think it is, but am I saying that he doesn't have the right to have that opinion? No, he absolutely has the right to have that opinion. Just like I have the right to disagree with him, and this combat veteran that decided to wear his uniform to court also has the right to make that decision. And realistically, again, what are you going to do? Free reprisal. Like, is Big Army going to do anything? Not once have we seen Big Army say, hey, we're going to go ahead and we're going to activate you back to active duty. So go ahead and put that uniform back on for your court martial, and then we're going to give you extra duty times, 30 days extra duty, half month's wages, right? You're going to be cleaning latrines with your toothbrush, bro. With your toothbrush, bro, or you're going to go to the brig for that, man, because you dared to wear a dress uniform to the funeral. So again, it's wild, but these veterans exist, right? And so when you push it to its limits, it's like, well, what are you going to do, right? We see it pretty much in every camp of people, right? We see it in every camp of people, whether we're talking about, for example, if you disagree with something the radical left, for example, doesn't agree with, what happens, right? It's because you don't like LGBT rights, you don't like people of color, you don't care about people of color, you don't care about insert perceived victimized group here, right? This group of people that deserves more, you just hate them. That's kind of the left's mantra. The far right's mantra we see, if you, for example, if you decide to take a knee during the national anthem, which again is, if you can burn an American flag and that's free speech, why can't you kneel for the national? You know what I mean? Like, You have every right to do it. But if you do that, then it's because you hate military and you hate cops, right? So every group of people is going to try to placate, instead of arguing merits, they're just going to placate to, you just hate this group of people, right? We see it. Well, in the veteran community, when this is pushed to its logical conclusion, you get this right here. Well, when you earn the right to wear the uniform, you should show respect to those who aren't here and able to wear it anymore by wearing it honorably. I'm not making this up. That uniform comes with history and honor and should be respected when worn. Right? And so now you have, in the veteran community, if you don't do something that they like, or you don't fall toe to what they think is right, it's because you hate your own kind, right? You hate your fallen brothers and sisters before you, and now you're desecrating their name. And so, for me, whenever somebody makes wild claims about being able to talk for a whole group of people like they're a monolith, right or wrong, I just tune them out completely. Just being 100% honest with you. When you are narcissistic enough to believe that you can speak for an entire group of people, especially individuals that you've never met before, I really just it's easy for me to disregard what you're saying. But that's what it is, right? Well, if you're not going to wear it honorably, the fact that your brother, sister, and parents died because somebody murdered them, that's dishonorable for you to wear that uniform to provide your impact statement pursuant to Supreme Court case precedents of Payne v. Tennessee. That's literally what they're saying, Again, it's mind-numbing. It's wild. And so, when somebody decides they can speak for an entire group of individuals, it makes no sense. And so that kind of brings us to our next kind of portion of this, right? So let's talk about something that we see all the time. I don't know if you've been to a VFW recently, but medals on civilian clothing. Again, retired personnel and former members of the Army may wear all categories of medals described in this regulation on appropriate civilian clothing. So I guess the question really becomes, right, what is deemed appropriate? Who gets to decide what is appropriate? Is this appropriate? Again, what is appropriate? We're looking at Army regulation, right? We're looking at Army regulation 670-1, 23-6, medals on civilian clothing. It says they can be worn on appropriate civilian clothing. Is this considered appropriate civilian clothing? This biker jacket? I would argue it's not. I mean, I think that's a really easy argument to make. I don't think that the military would call this appropriate. If I was wearing this on a military base, I would expect to get stopped and checked repeatedly, saying, hey, that's not appropriate. You have military warfare and breast devices, insignia devices on your biker jacket. You got Star Wars on your biker jacket. Sears School. You got the Mandalorian skull on your jacket on the back. It has a bunch of patches on there, from deployment patches from various deployments I've been on. I think you can make a very good argument that if I was wearing this on base or out in town, by and large, military would be like, no, that's not appropriate. I guarantee you that Hells Angels, Mongols, any biker club, I'm not personally attached to any motorcycle clubs, but any motorcycle club out there, I'm pretty sure those of them that serve the military, I've seen them, they have their military stuff on there. So you're going to go to every motorcycle club and wrap up every guy that has a military organizational stuff on their biker jacket. We're just going to activate everybody back to active duty and start making them clean toilets with toothbrushes. Like, honestly, like, what are we talking about, guys? Like, at some point we have to talk in the realm of reasonability here, right? And so it's one of those things where it's like, I realize that this is probably not considered to be appropriate civilian attire, clothing. Okay, so what? What are you gonna do? What's Big Army gonna do? What are these vet bros gonna do? You can't court-martial me. I think we made that precedent clear. That's not gonna happen. So what do they have left to do? Oh, you're being dishonorable to people that have died that I've never met. Okay, who gets to decide what's honorable, right? And that's the thing. And that's the one good thing about veterans. I think that when we finally come to something that we're comfortable with, you're not going to convince me otherwise, right? I mean, you can try to convince me that I'm a bad person. I don't care. You know, you can try to convince me that my actions for wearing this are dishonorable. I don't care. I mean, I guess you can name call me and you can call me mean names. Okay, you know what I mean? Like, not any different than anybody else on the road that doesn't like cops, right? So it's like, you know, this is kind of where we're at. And so again, I think that, me personally, if you ask me, well, why do you think that he wore his uniform? Do you think he was trying to gather support from the jury? You think this, you think that? Well, I can tell you what I think, and this is just my opinion. I think that, and from the people I've talked to about this video, I think that we have to, let's take this into 100% perspective. We are looking at a man who's lost his entire family. A man murdered his entire family, including the family dog. Murdered everybody in cold blood. You don't think his world isn't spinning? You don't think that mentally he's not in probably the best place, right? And so where can he go for some stability? Where can he go to regain some control? I bet you and I don't know what he looked like before, but I bet you when he made sure his face was shaved and he had that high and tight and he put that tight, uncomfortable uniform on, I bet you he felt regular and normal for the first time in a while. I bet you he felt like he finally had some resemblance of control over his emotions and over his life. Because you got to think, and I agree with everybody, that uniform represents more than just a uniform, especially to veterans. It does. The uniform represents more than just a uniform. Every one of these patches has an experience attached to it, has a thought, has memories attached to it. The best of times, the worst of times, all attached to it. And so I don't think that he was, in my opinion, I don't think he was wearing it because I don't think he very much cared what the jury thinks. I don't think he cares what the person that murdered his family thinks. I really don't think he cares what the judge thinks. And I think the judge is looking out for him. I think his world is spinning and he is trying to hold himself together and have as much control in his life as humanly possible. That's what I think. And the veterans I've talked to, that's what they think too. I know that's not all veterans, right? We're not a monolith, but the veterans, I guess we're good at, putting people in our circle that are like-minded, and I can tell you the ones I talk to are very like-minded, and yeah, that makes complete sense to me. It's way easier for me to understand and characterize the idea that the wear of the uniform that he's doing is a nexus to control that he otherwise wouldn't have in his life. That makes complete sense to me. The idea that he's doing it because he's trying to garner some kind of hope and support, hopium from a jury, I think he could care less. My honest opinion. And so, yeah, I think he's in probably not the best headspace, and I wish him the best of luck. And so, with that, and again, there's caveats. Why do I wear it? Well, as you can see on my suit, I wear the warfare devices, and I wear that suit when I adjudicate cases. When I go to municipal court, district court, state court, federal court, I wear the suit. And the reason why I wear the warfare devices are the same reason why I wore the warfare devices while I was in the military, right? In the Navy, warfare devices are a representation of subject matter expertise. It shows you have a mastery in a certain skill set or field, right? And so all different jobs in the military, whether you're a pilot and you have pilot wings, you're a Navy SEAL and you have your trident, and you're a diver, you have a dive bubble. EOD has their own warfare device, air warfare, surface warfare. The bottom wings here, these were given to me by the Army when I graduated Army Flight Medic School in Fort Rucker, Alabama. They're a representation of a mastery of a set of skills. And so in the military, mastery and a subject matter expertise in a certain field is important, right? It's important to know how to do your job and do it well. Well, when it comes to criminal adjudication and the Supreme Court, they also agree. So if we look at the Supreme Court case precedents we have here, my training and experience matters. So I wear this, I wear my warfare devices on my lapel, on my suit, for the same reasons why, again, I wore them in the military. Federal Rule of Evidence 702, Connor v. Graham, 1989. Connor v. Graham and Barnes versus Felix 2025. This is a case law from this year. use of force, right? We're talking about use of force case precedences. Again, the Supreme Court has, in every one of these Supreme Court case precedences, has said that an officer's training and experience matters. It matters in the formulation of reasonable articulable suspicion. It matters in the formulation of probable cause. It matters in how the rationale for why somebody does something. Again, the Supreme Court has affirmed this numerous times. Kansas v. Glover, Terry v. Ohio, Minnesota versus Dickerson, Arizona versus Hicks, Coolidge versus New Hampshire. These are just a few, but there are cases upon cases upon cases where, again, the Supreme Court continues to affirm that an officer's training and experience matters. So, again, I wear it on my lapel for the same reason why I wore it in the military, because my training and experience matters. Simple as that. I mean, there's really no, there's not this really extreme, hardcore, depth to it. The Supreme Court says it matters. Okay, I agree with the Supreme Court. The military says it matters, right? I agree with them. Training experience matters. So yeah, it's just plain and simple. Don't think too much into it. But there you have it. I hope this video was helpful for you guys. Tell me what you think. I'm really curious. Realistically, I'm just curious in the comment section. Again, I don't play. I'm not planning on doing any kind of military content or whatever. But this was good because I got to address the lapel pins. I got to address some case law. We got to address a ton of case law. We got to address some UCMJ stuff. We got to address some Army regulation stuff. And the video happened in a court of law for triple homicide. Triple plus homicide. So it worked out. I mean, the perfect segue into talking about all this stuff. But ultimately, I want to know what do you guys think in the comment section below. Do you think that military veterans need to be court-martialed for exercising their constitutionally protected rights? Do you think these veterans are just out of their minds? Do you think these veterans are absolutely right? Do you think me wearing this is disrespecting my brothers and sisters that have laid down their lives before me? I'm curious to know, what are your thoughts in the comment section below? Well, I hope this video was helpful. As always, guys, long live the Republic.